On today's review,
we have a great one for you. We have Alpine's iLX 207.
Stay tuned.
So Alpine started out the iLX series last year with the 007. Then they went this year to the 107. And now we have a 207. And we have both this year, but we have a 207 also. They also make this same model radio in an iLX 207 WRA, which is a Jeep version of this, or the same radio. So if you're trying to get more information on a WRA, it's the same radio, just comes with an iData-Link Maestro and a set of wings for the dash kit. When we get one of those in, we'll do a review on that and probably insert this video into it because the only difference is that. But let's go ahead and start unboxing this because we got a lot of stuff to talk about and I want to hit as much of it as possible. So, Fernando, if you please. Now, inside the box you get, let's talk about this real quick, you get the cool owner's card right here. You get a warranty card and you get two manuals. Now, one manual is the quick start guide and one manual is the installation guide. The installation guide is very helpful. The quick start guide, you can go online and download the full instruction manual, which is what I would recommend doing.
GPS antenna.
The reason why it comes with a GPS antenna is because of the Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. It allows you to keep your phones in, down low in a cup holder area. So you'll use the radio's GPS antenna instead of the one built into your phone.
Microphone.
Now, it has an external microphone, and we're going to get back to this in a minute because this radio and this radio alone has a really cool feature that you don't even know about that might help some of you guys out. So, this harness here is has the orange and the black tip with a bunch of brown wires. This is your steering wheel control input, which is the orange. Then you have the microphone input. I tell you what, it has a lot of harnesses. We'll just pass those along, and when we get to the back of the radio, we'll explain what they all do.
There you go. More harness.
Yep. It comes with a 5-foot USB cable. There's only one USB input on this, and this is the extension for it.
RCA input.
RCA input.
And power harness.
Main power harness. A
Trim.
dash trim bezel.
And
a bag of screws. And this bracket here, the bracket that's in this bag right here, this is for, which you'll see in a minute, the dual HDMIs on the back of the radio. So once you put the HDMI input, you can lock them into place with this bracket here. So let's go ahead and get this out of the box. We'll set up the back and we'll go through all these harnesses as well as all the inputs on the back of the radio. The first input on it is going to be your GPS antenna input. Above and next to that is an 18-pin input. That's this white harness here. On this white harness you have your auxiliary input, which has a black end. You have your iData-Link input as well as your camera input here. Now, this is made to control a couple different things. You can use one of the Alpine cameras that allows you to do some DSP effects for front or rear, or if you just have a standard camera, it comes with a harness that snaps into place and gives you a standard camera RCA and output. We'll talk more about the camera once we get inside because there are other features that it can do as well. Next to that, you have the one and only USB input. It's recessed in rather deeply, so it makes for easier installation. Then you have your HDMI input here, then your HDMI output here. Down below, you have your FM antenna for HD radio. You have your input for Sirius XM. You need the add-on SVX 300 add-on tuner in order for that to function. Next, you have the 10-pin input, which is right here. On that is your three 4-volt RCAs. You have purple for rear, gray for front, and blue for subwoofer. Lastly, you have the 12-pin connector. On the 12-pin connector, you have an orange 1/8" input. That is for your steering wheel input. You have another black 1/8" input with a white tab on it. This is your microphone input. Then you have all these brown wires with stripes as well as a red with a stripe. We'll talk about these more in depth later, but what these are basically for is for external Alpine products, which we'll get into in a little bit. And then I almost forgot the standard power plug input. Now we'll go ahead and turn this around and power it up and talk about some of the features that are built into it. So there's 3 touch points on the screen. Your top touch point here, if you tap it, it'll go ahead and bring down your audio source, phone, Bluetooth device list, display off, bass and treble, bass engine SQ. So if you tap this, it'll go up and pull up your 5 bass engine effects along with the level. If you hit tone adjust, it'll take you back and give you bass and treble control. Now, don't worry, this has a lot more than bass and treble control, but if that's all you're interested in, it's got it. Balance and fader can also be adjusted here, and your subwoofer volume if your subwoofer is turned on. Next, you have your bottom button. This is going to bring you into your source selection, your phone. Things that aren't here right now are Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, your setup menu. Then your third touch point is over here on the right. Here's your presets. So you have 18 FM and 6 AM presets. Now if you pick a channel, you'll notice over here a star highlights. Let's just go ahead and touch that for right now. We'll come back to it in a minute. Let's talk about the buttons across the bottom. The first button is the music note. This is going to be your source select for audio. Every time you tap it, it'll take you through another audio source. Next to that is voice. This allows you to do hands-free calling in whatever app you're running. So if you're using Apple, it'll do CarPlay. If you're using Android, it'll do Android Auto. If you have Bluetooth, it'll do the corresponding Bluetooth, so Siri Eyes Free or Google Voice. You have volume down, you have volume up. Then you have that star that we just talked about over here. Let's go ahead and press it. What it's done is it's gone ahead and added that channel that we were just using as a favorite. This is your favorites page. On the favorites page, it allows you to add in your own custom favorite fast keys. So if there's someone you always call, you can add them here from Bluetooth. If there's favorite radio stations you want to have access to through either FM or Sirius XM, you can put them here as well. So this will allow you to just access the features that you want very quickly without having to dig through any menus. If you press and hold this button, it'll also launch the backup camera. Next to that is menu. That'll launch the same feature as if you were to tap the middle key here. So as we did earlier, when we swiped up, when we hit menu, it's an actual hard key to take us to the same spot. Track up, track down. Right here is a reset button. This is the navigation icon. What that's used for is if you're running Android Auto or Apple CarPlay and your phone is compatible with this feature, it'll automatically launch the phone's GPS on the screen. Now, as we said, we'd talk a little bit more about this harness here that has all these brown wires and the one red white hanging off of it. The reason why this harness exists is because this radio for Alpine is like a control hub. It does more than what comes in the box, a lot more. And now that it has HDMI input and output, you can do a lot of different things with it. Alpine radios have always had the ability to control their overheads through the front. Now what it allows you to do is if you have their overhead, the PKG-RSE3 HDMI, it allows you to, for one, if you're playing a HDMI source on here, something like phone video, like Hulu or Netflix off your smartphone, it will now appear on the rear screen. If you're playing a DVD in the rear screen, it will also appear on the front screen. And because of these brown wires, these are the remote inputs. So they'll connect to remote input outputs on the device so that you can control that rear screen's DVD from your front screen. So you'll be able to direct what the little kiddies are doing in the back, and or if you just wanted a DVD player, it'll allow you to do that. Which brings up another interesting point. If you do want a DVD player, and of course you don't want to add an overhead, they make the DVE-5300. That's what some of these other brown wires are for. What that is a standalone DVD player with HDMI output. That will allow you to plug into this and get a fully functional, controllable DVD player that you can mount someplace else in your car. So if you really have to have DVD, you have two options to get DVD into this unit. Next, what we want to do is talk about the menu system of this radio.
Right.
Because there's a lot of things buried inside the menu that are going to be things you're going to want to know about. So let's go ahead and take a look at the menu. All right, let's go ahead and select Setup. Now the way the menu is structured is through these fast keys across the top here. So the first one is wireless, which is going to show you these. If you tap General, it'll page up to General. Hit Source, it'll page up to Source. Hit System, it'll page up to System. This is very similar to like a website where you're trying to find information. Now if you just scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, it will page down. There again, it's not active scrolling, it's full paging. Let's go ahead and take a look at Bluetooth. First off, you have to decide whether you want Bluetooth on or off. Now you're saying, why wouldn't I want Bluetooth on? Well, if you're going to be doing Apple CarPlay all the time, Bluetooth is turned off when you're plugged in. If you're always going to plug in, you may not want Bluetooth on. It's an option you can turn on and off. Let's go ahead and go into actual Bluetooth. Now, there is 4 settings in the Bluetooth. The first one is Bluetooth information. Let's go ahead and tap on it. This is going to give you the name of the device, so when you're trying to find it over Bluetooth is right here, as well as the Bluetooth device address. Select the back button. Set Bluetooth device. This allows you for the devices that you are going to pair to tell it, is it just for audio, is it for phone, or is it for both? Page back. Hands-free device priority. This is kind of important if you have a multi-use car, meaning more than one person drives the car. Let's say you have a primary driver and a secondary driver. Well, it allows you to set up your phone so that you have the primary phone or the secondary phone. That way, if you both get into the car at the same time, it'll know to go to the primary phone first before going to the secondary phone. iPhone auto pairing. If you're not going to be using this for CarPlay, you could turn this feature on. Otherwise, default is off because every time you plug in an iPhone, it automatically launches CarPlay, thus shutting off the pairing capability. Device. We want to look at phone speaker. This is unique to Alpine. Most manufacturers, Bluetooth only comes out of the front left or right speaker. But with the Alpine, it allows you to pick all, which is the default. So if you're installing in like a Chrysler with a premium sound system where you have to use the rear speaker outputs and you weren't paying attention and hooked it up backwards, your Bluetooth would still function perfectly normal. Now, if you don't want it to play through all speakers, you can have the option to choose front left, front right, or both front left and right. That way the little kiddies in the back seat don't have to hear your Bluetooth phone call. Also, microphone select. This is unique just to the 207. And why it's unique is this is one of the things we were going to talk about when I said we'll talk about the microphone in a minute. Located right here next to the music note is a microphone. What this microphone allows you to do is not use that other microphone. If you select built-in, then you don't actually have to plug that microphone in. You can use the microphone located right here. So if you're like, man, I really don't want that aftermarket microphone mounted up on my mirror, I can't use my factory microphone, well, this is your next option. This allows you to not have to mount an external microphone and use this microphone to do all your hands-free. Let's go to General. The first thing to come up is sound. We'll come back to that in a minute because that's a really deep topic. We want to get through some of this other stuff first. Picture quality. Some people ask if there's an ability to adjust the video and or the camera. When the camera is active, you can go in and adjust the picture quality for both the video and the camera. Right now it's not on because we haven't turned on the camera yet. Display and key. This is where all your personalization is going to take effect. Now, these buttons across the front here always stay white. These two outside buttons, however, can change the color, as well as several different background colors that you can view. What you can't do is change the actual image though. So you have screen and lighting. This is your dimmer. Now this has an auto light sensing dimmer. There's no actual dimmer wire that gets hooked up to the car. When it's dark inside the car, it automatically dims the screen. If this isn't functioning properly, because let's say you have really dark tint, you can go ahead and select on as well as off. Now, if you're cool with it darkening, you have key illumination level as screen dimmer level. This allows you to brighten these keys if necessary and also tell it how dim you want it to actually be when it turns on. Screen color. These are the choices you have for your screen. You have glass blue, glass green, glass light blue, glass red, steel green, steel light blue, steel red. And that is going to be the background when you're on the actual radio. So next you have illumination color. Illumination color is going to be for these buttons here. So if we'd like to see a substantial difference, now they're green. Page up. We have orange. We also have yellow. Next we'll go into general. That's right, they have a general inside of general. General is your language. So if you had it installed and you'd like to pick one of the other 23 languages, this is where you would do it. Clock mode allows you to pick between 12 and 24 as far as displaying goes. You can turn on and off your daylight savings. Let's page up. About mode. About mode is a pretty important one, in that this is where you're going to clear all settings. So if you need to do a full system restore, you go to General, General, About. Here you could choose clear all settings, and this will reset the radio to out of the box settings. So after watching this, if you've played with it a ton and you'd like to get back to default number 1, this is where it's at. It'll also give you your serial number, the current firmware, and of course the model number. You can also turn on and off the demo mode here. Last is going to be vehicle. This radio will work overseas. It's not just made for the United States. So you can tell it, is the steering wheel on the left side or the right side? As well as also you can go into installation status. This is going to tell you, is the reverse lights on? So if the reverse light camera for some reason isn't actually triggering, you can go and check to see if the radio is actually seeing the reverse wire come in, as well as the parking brake. Next is source, which we can go to. The first thing up is radio. Just like we said, this works outside of the United States. Radio is where you're going to change your frequency for outside of the United States. You can tap here and you can change that. When you go into HDMI, you can tell it whether you want it to be an HDMI input or a DVD input. You can also turn off Pandora for Bluetooth, and you can turn off Apple CarPlay. So if you're an Android user and you don't want to ever have to worry about somebody plugging their iPhone into it, you can turn it off here. If you don't want to have Pandora appear constantly in the menu, you can just go ahead and shut it off here, and now it won't appear in the menu. System. As we said before, the backup camera needs to be activated. To activate the backup camera, it's in System, it's the first selection, select backup camera. Go ahead and turn it on. Now you're going to be prompted for front, rear, other, or camera selector. Let's talk about this one for a minute. Now the reason why it says camera selector is because this has the Alpine smart camera plug on the back. That was that plug that had the 6 wires that we plugged that one little RCA into if you're not using the Alpine camera. The reason why is because they make this guy right here. This is the KCX-C250MC. The MC stands for multi-camera. You can buy this box here and you can add up to 3 cameras to this radio. Awesome. So you can do a front, a rear, and then a left or right camera. Okay. That's entirely up to you. The reason why it's not both left and right and it's just 3 is because they figure you can stick your head out the window and do this, whereas on the passenger side of the car, you might not be able to do that. So you can use any one of the 3 inputs, so you don't have to use all of them, but if you do want to do more than just a backup camera, you can use this to expand that. Now, you don't have to just use a backup camera. If you're fine with, let's say you have a camera in the mirror, and that's good, and you want to add a front camera, then you'd select front camera on this. Or if you have a system that already exists in the car where there's a front and rear camera on a separate screen, and you'd like to add a side mirror, so you can pick one camera here, or like we said, add this to it and have up to 3. Now, if you are using it as a backup camera, you can go into Guide Adjust. This has 3 sets of Guide Adjust, and it also has a new feature called Hitch Guide. What it'll do is this will allow you to simulate a ball hitch in the screen so that you know where you're at as far as the ball hitch goes. These are adjustable here by adjusting these arrows and selecting which one you want. You can also turn off individual markers, so if you feel you don't want these green ones, you can turn those off. You don't have to have them all on. You can turn them all off and just have the ball hitch if you want. Now, if you did decide to add in the rear seat entertainment, system is going to be where you're going to activate that. Also, external accessories. Now, Alpine makes this guy right here. This is a KAC-001 accessory controller. When you add this to this radio, this gives you a bunch of switches as well as icons that you can use those switches with. So for example, if you have, let's say, a Jeep or a pickup truck or something that has external lighting, maybe a winch, or something that you want to turn on and off, you can add this to this radio and control it from the radio, so you don't have to have a bunch of toggle switches. This is basically a really cool electronic toggle switch. Controlled from the radio. Last is smartphone apps. The only app that this is listed as is the Tune-It app. The Tune-It app we'll get to in a little bit when we talk about EQ, but you can turn it on and off if you don't want to use it. Now, since we passed over sound, let's go back to it. You have balance fader, rear speaker, subwoofer. Now all you have to do is come in here and touch any one of the top selections, and it's going to take you to this page right here. This is your main EQ page. Across the top you have your choices: balance fader, EQ presets, dual HD EQ, crossover, time correction, and close. The reason why it has rear speaker on and off is for just that. If you have rear seat entertainment and you want to be able to turn off the rear speakers so that it doesn't interfere with the headphones, you can go ahead and turn that on and off, as well as the subwoofer can be turned on and off for the same reason. We'll go ahead and turn it on. Once you activate the subwoofer, you then have subwoofer level control as well as phase. You can have it 0 or 180 degrees out of phase selectable from here. As far as balance and fader goes, you can jack this up as much as you want, and then if you select center, it'll automatically go and put it back in the center position. EQ presets. This has 10 preset EQ settings, and each one is color coded and each one is named. So you have pop, rock, news, jazz, classical, country, easy listening, hip hop, and electronic. There again, if you just want to use bass and treble, you can do that. However, if you want to take it to the next level, you can use one of these 10 presets. If you want to go to the next level, then you want to go to the dual HD EQ. Now what this allows you to do is adjust a 9-band parametric EQ. And what I mean by parametric is this frequency right here that's highlighted yellow. You can come over here and adjust that frequency. They're not preset points. So unlike a conventional EQ that just has 13 preset points, you can actually pick the 9 points you want. Then you can adjust how wide the influence is. So let's go ahead and turn this up. And then if we pick narrow, it'll make it a very narrow. If we pick wide, it's going to influence more frequencies around it. Now you have 3 presets. So once you've set this up, you can press and hold just like an FM preset and store. Up here you'll see where it says front and rear sync. What that means is that you have 9-band parametric EQ for front, 9-band parametric EQ for rear. So if you want the rears to be tuned differently than the front, you can do that with this. Crossover. There's 11 bands to choose from on the crossover, as well as independent front, rear, and sub. So you can pick your frequency, and then you can pick your slope. So for this, you have 6, 12, 18, and then 24 dB per octave slope. If you tap channel, it's going to switch the channels. We'll go ahead and we'll activate that. Now, the cool thing about this is this red line right here. Every time you switch channels, it activates that red line. So, the channel that's red is the current channel that's being adjusted. You can't screw it up. If you come over here to frequency, you can adjust your frequency, and there again you can adjust your slope. But the red line is the active channel. And you also have 3 presets for your crossover. Time correction. This unit, of course, has time correction. No good unit these days doesn't. This allows you to go in and pick the distance from your head to each speaker. Now, you can hit flat, which will automatically erase it back to 0. You have 3 presets there again, so you don't have to have just one time corrected preset. You could set up different ones for who's in the car, so you can have one for the center, one for left, one for right, one for all. Down here where you see the MS, if you tap it, you can decide whether you want to do inches, centimeters, or milliseconds. If you set it up for inches, you can just measure and put in the measurement. A couple other things in sound is your source volume setup. The source volume setup is for volume compensation, or source level control, or SLA. You can call it whatever you like. Basically what this means is that if you have a source, let's say a smartphone, that isn't as loud as, let's say, the FM, or you want to set it up for optimal clipping performance, you can come in here and you can adjust the amount of volume that the unit is putting out above and beyond the main volume control. There again, this is very helpful if you're setting the unit up for clip. Caller level, you can adjust the phone's level, microphone level, ringtone level, key sound feedback, that annoying beep. Then you have microphone ECNR. That is echo cancellation and noise reduction. You can turn it on or off. Default is on. If you've gone ahead and messed up the whole EQ settings, and you're like, man, I don't know where, and you don't want to go ahead and restore the whole radio back to out of the box, you can come in here and go to default sound settings set. Are you sure you want to apply a default sound setting? You can't undo this. We'll select OK. Now what this done is this has gone ahead and set it back to the factory default sound settings of 0. So setting up the sound the way you want through the screen isn't always ideal, meaning you have to touch the screen. You may want to do it through your phone. That's where the Tune It app comes into play. If you go ahead and plug your phone in, Apple is going to be plugged in. Android you can do over Bluetooth. From here you can go ahead and do all the same adjustments. So from here you can do all the same adjustments that we were doing on the face of the radio, just do them from your phone. So if you'd like to come in and adjust the parametric EQ, you can just do it here, and it may be a little easier than adjusting it on the face of the radio. The other feature about this is that it's a social app. So if you have, let's say, a Subaru WRX and you want to go ahead and set up a cool curve, but you don't know how, you can go into the social side of this, and there might be someone that has already set one up, and you can download it to your phone and then import it to the radio. And the opposite is true. If you want to share your tune with somebody, you can do that as well. Now, a couple sources that we've kind of talked over and haven't really touched on is the first one, which is the radio's tuner. When we first told you about the FM antenna, we did mention that it had HD radio. For those of you unfamiliar with HD radio offers 1, better sound quality, and 2, simulcast, meaning that for every HD channel that you're used to hearing now, one local channel, there's typically a second channel riding piggyback on that. So every one channel is actually 2 channels. So here we have a top 40 channel, HD1. HD2 is a totally different channel, which is techno.
Cool.
It is kind of cool. Secondly is the USB. This has only one USB, but that USB can be used for several different things. Obviously, CarPlay, Android Auto are the two big ones, which we'll get to in a minute. But you can also use it to play FLAC. For those of you that know what FLAC files are, this will do 96 kilohertz 24-bit FLAC files. It'll also do WMA, and it'll also do video at MPEG-4. Now, it'll only play thumb drives encoded in FAT32. This will not play a hard drive, so you can't plug in your terabyte hard drive or anything like that. What you want to do is stick somewhere around the 32 to 64 gigabyte size. Yeah. Don't go crazy on this. The other thing to keep in mind too is that the HDMI, even though it's HDMI, it is not 1080. Okay. The best that will come over this HDMI between here and the screen is DVD quality, which is 480, not 720. Alright, so keep that in mind too when you're encoding any video on your thumb drive, is that you don't have to go crazy. It's not gonna read that, it's not gonna do any better. Keep the file size small and the resolution low. It's just how it is. As we said, this does Android Auto, this does Apple CarPlay. Let's wrap it up. Let's talk about that. And by I mean, we're gonna wrap it up. From this point on, if you guys are familiar with Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, thanks for sticking with us this long. For those of you that aren't, we're going to walk you through the basics of those before we wrap this video up. So first up, Apple CarPlay. Now what you want to do is, this is a wired Apple CarPlay radio. This is not wireless. The only one that is wireless is the 107. This is the 207, just in case you hadn't caught on to that yet. So it is a wired CarPlay radio. So we've gone ahead and plugged in our phone, and you have CarPlay on. Let's talk about it. CarPlay is a service that is built by Apple and that Alpine and several other manufacturers have bought royalties to. And what this does is, anytime you plug an iPhone in, it doesn't matter which iPhone, it'll automatically launch these apps that are on your phone. Now, apps that aren't compatible, before you ask, are anything that streams any form of video. So Hulu, Netflix, YouTube, HBO Go. None of those that do video are compatible with Apple CarPlay. This is designed to make your driving experience easier. What we do have is phone, music, maps, messaging, the now playing, podcasts, audiobooks, and then several of your other musical stations such as iHeartRadio, CBS News, Audible Books, NPR, Sketcher, Radio DJ, Pandora, TuneIn Radio. And there's several more. These are just a few. Now if you select the music icon, this is going to go ahead and take you to your phone's music section. And it'll go ahead and start playing this. Now, if you know the song you want to hear, you don't actually have to do any of this. You can simply just press and hold, play some ZZ Top.
Here's the best of ZZ Top by ZZ Top coming up.
If you tap the speaker while you're adjusting the volume, it will also mute the radio. So for those of you that like mute, that's how you do it. Now if you hit the home icon, your phone,
Who would you like to call?
you can select contacts. There again, if you know who you want to call, all you have to do is press the voice button. Call Fernando Lopez.
Calling Fernando Lopez.
It'll go ahead and do that. The thing to keep in mind with CarPlay is that these icons are here to make your life a little easier while you integrate into using Siri for everything. So when you hit Maps, it'll take you to Maps, it'll show you this. You can be listening to the AM/FM radio, an auxiliary, an HDMI source. It doesn't matter. This will overlay over whatever source you're listening to. It's like having a built-in GPS system. It'll mute the sound for whatever source you're listening to, and she'll tell you your turn-by-turn directions. If you want to go somewhere, you select destination. Over here you see a voice prompt. You tap this.
Where would you like to go?
If it's raining and she's having a hard time and she can't hear what you're saying, you can just input the destination here, just like any other GPS system. However, all you have to do is press this. Take me to the closest Publix.
Getting directions to Publix.
and then you select go and automatically take you there. Now text messaging being what it is in the world today, eyes free, both CarPlay and Android Auto, this makes texting a whole lot better experience. Now if you get a text message while you're driving, a gray bar is going to appear at the top of the screen, just like this. If you tap it,
Fernando said, I'm on my way. Want to reply?
yes.
What do you want to say?
Okay, I'll see you when you get here.
Your reply to Fernando says, okay, I'll see you when you get here. Ready to send it?
Send it.
I'll send it.
Now, if for some reason while you're driving and you had to drive and you didn't see this gray bar appear, the message alert will appear here at the top of the radio to tell you have a message. If you simply press and hold the voice or the Siri button and say, play me back my last message, she'll go ahead and do that for you. Alright, so in a nutshell, that's Apple CarPlay. It's a driving experience that makes your life a little bit easier. And of course, Android is not going to be left out of the fun and excitement that is hands-free navigation and coolness. So now, let's go ahead and take a look at Android Auto. When Android Auto launches for the first time, it gives you a tutorial on how to do it. So if you hit show me how, tap it, it'll go ahead and explain what each one of these icons is for. It'll show you that your music is here. If you have a push to talk on your steering wheel, it may be accessible. So the basic home page is tiles. What this is going to do is give you things like the music you're listening to, the weather, recent text message and calling. If there's a GPS route going, it'll also show you that. Speaking of GPS, the first icon is GPS. If you tap it, it'll go ahead and take you to your Google Maps. You can search by simply tapping here, recent places, categories of traffic, or just like CarPlay, go ahead and touch the voice right here, and you can tell her where you'd like to go. Now, next to the icon here, there's a little down arrow. If you tap that, you can choose between Google Maps or Waze. So if you have Android, you can do either one. Next to that is phone. Tap here, here's all the information. Go back, here's your recent calls. If you tap here on the microphone, you can say who you'd like to call, and she'll automatically take you there. There again, you don't have to be in the phone to do that. You could be here on the home page and simply press the microphone to get to those things. You can access the GPS by using the microphone. Headphones mean music. We have Pandora launched. Here's your stations. If you come back over here, you'll notice there's an arrow next to it. Tap it. You have your Google Play Music, Pandora, Spotify, and of course what other apps are compatible with Android Auto will also be here. Lastly, you have the return to Alpine. So if you tap here, it'll automatically take you back to your Alpine radio. So just like with Apple CarPlay, there's no video playback on this through Android Auto. So there's no support for YouTube, there's no support for Netflix, Hulu. That's not there. That's not what it's made for. It's made for making your life easier while you're driving, giving you maps, giving you hands-free calling, giving you access to your music at the push of a button. So that's what it's made for. If you would like to do those things, keep in mind this has the HDMI input. So if you have a phone that has some form of HDMI output capability, like an iPhone that has a Lightning to HDMI adapter, a new Galaxy 8 that has a USB-C to HDMI, or an older phone that will do Miracast or MHL, if you grab the installation manual here, page 9 through 13 will walk you through all the different forms of screen sharing that this thing is capable of. But keep in mind, when you're screen sharing from the same device that you're trying to do Android Auto or Apple CarPlay from, you can't. So you gotta choose one or the other. If you wanna watch Netflix, you can't have CarPlay or Android Auto. Right. So something to keep in mind. But don't worry, we'll have more videos on those at a later date. This one is done though. Thank you for watching, Fernando.
Alright, so if you like this video, please subscribe, share, like. You know where you find us: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, also in Twitter.
Alright, we appreciate you guys so much for watching these and sticking with us through all this lengthy explanation. If you're still with us right now, you guys have a great night, and we'll see you later next time. Bye.